the actual meeting after the public hearing, just so you know. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome tonight to our town council meeting. But prior, as I just said, we are going to have a public hearing concerning our modification to Veterans Tax Ordinance. And so this evening, I'm going to turn over to Attorney Alex Riccadone. And Alex, if you could just outline it for us, and so we understand, and then we'll allow folks, if anyone has anything to say, we'll take it after your assessment and your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This public hearing is in regards to Southington Ordinance 375-8 titled Veterans Property Tax Exemption. It was last amended October 13th, 2015, and the council scheduled this public hearing on January 10th, 2022 at their regularly scheduled meeting. The one change to Section A is to increase the single exemption limit from $59,600 to $64,400, and for a surviving spouse, and for a couple or a married couple of a veteran from $67,200 to $72,600. The exemption will be applicable for the next grand list if it's voted on tonight, and the main addition to this is it's going to automatically adjust under the Social Security Cost of Living Index. And the exact verbiage is under item C, the income limitations provided in subsection A shall be adjusted annually to mirror the Social Security Administrator's annual cost of living adjustment percentage. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Attorney Riccadone. So we have this amended item to our property tax exemption. So I'm going to open up to the floor. If there's anyone here wishing to speak in favor of this, please come to the podium, give your name and address, and we would love to hear from you.
Good evening, Steve Penneridge, 282 Loper Street here in Southington, also a past commander of the American Legion. And on behalf of the veterans in Southington, we applaud you for doing this. It's not a lot of money if you make a lot of money, but the veterans that are under that limit, this will make a difference in their lives, and we thank you for thinking of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you for your service, Steve. Rachel.
Good evening, folks. My name is Rachel Waukee, and I reside at 138 Longcrest Drive in Southington. I'm currently the chairwoman of the Town of Southington Veterans Committee, and I would like to say that I'm here tonight to wholeheartedly endorse the proposed amendment to increase the exemption of real property tax assessments to qualified veterans or their surviving spouses. I'm so proud of our town, of our town manager, our town attorney, our staff at town hall, and the entire town council. They're always thinking of our veterans, and they're always trying to improve the quality of their lives. And so for that, we're very appreciative. And so I hope that if possible, you will see your way to consider this proposed amendment. So I thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
My name is Jason Kapp. My address is 7 Old Mill Road in Plantsville. I'm the commander of the American Legion, Post 72 here in Southington. And on behalf of our veterans, I definitely thank you for taking this up, and it's something that's going to really help our veterans. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any other individuals who would like to speak in favor? We're going to open it up to those who would like to speak against this. Anybody? Okay. Members of the council, do you have any questions or do you need any clarification on this matter? Anybody?
Madam Chair?
Yes, of course.
Yes, the gentleman, Robert Hooper,
Yes.
who had brought this to our attention, I know Councilor Lombardi was in touch with him as well. So we had emailed back and forth a bit, and he could not be here tonight. So he did ask if I could read something
Oh,
as part of this
absolutely. Go
to put
ahead.
into
Sure.
the record. Okay. So he, let's see. He says, I wanted to make you aware that I came from a small town in Maine and graduated valedictorian when I was 17 years old in 1963. Rather than going on to college, I decided to enlist in the U.S. Army, and my enlistment at 17 years old was November 22nd, 1963, which happened to be just 5 days after the assassination of President Kennedy. I did my basic at Fort Dix in New Jersey, followed by communications school at Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. I was assigned to a communications unit in Germany where I stayed for 29 months until my honorable discharge as an E5 in November 1966. After returning to Maine, I came to Southington in December of 1966 because my sister and brother-in-law had moved here in the early 60s. I have lived most of my life in Southington, and he remembered, Madam Chair, when he moved here, your father was the police chief at the time.
Oh, nice.
I appreciate all Southington has done for our veterans, and when the extra $10,000 exemption was added in 2015, I applied for it. It wasn't until we got our notice of the 5.9% increase in Social Security for 2022 that I started to realize that between Social Security for my wife and I, and the amount I take from investments each year, that I could probably go over the income limits, and that is why I contacted members of the town council. I was amazed how quickly I got answers back and that the vote to increase would be so prompt. If in fact the vote is for the increase, I want to thank you personally, and I am sure on behalf of some veterans, all the town council members, you all should be proud of what you do on behalf of citizens. And he just asked that this be read into the record tonight.
Thank you so much, Val.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Anyone else? Yes, Chris, go ahead.
Just a comment. Over the years, those of us that have been here for a while, we've made several modifications. Vicki, I know you know, as we've done this, and it's really a pleasure to do this to support our veterans in this community. So, unfortunately, the last time we made changes, we were our hands were tied a little bit as far as what we could offer at the state level. So, and things do change constantly. So, I'm very grateful for the fact that it was brought before us tonight, so we could increase the limits. As identified tonight, to be a little bit more helpful to our veterans. So thank you to all the veterans, especially those of you that are here tonight. And officially, Rachel, I just want to congratulate you in your new position as the chair of the Veterans Committee. I know Mr. DeMello would be very proud to have you in that position. So thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Madam Chair.
Anybody else? Yeah.
I just have a question for the town attorney.
Of course, please.
So, Alex, just so I understand, so going forward, if there are increases in the COLA, this will adjust automatically, or will we have to do this yearly? How would it work?
So the main adjustment you're making today to this ordinance will allow the assessor to automatically adjust it based off Social Security. You're hands off. This is just going to be a plug and play, unless you decide to change it otherwise.
Very good. Thanks. I want to thank the veterans for coming out tonight, and thank you for your service. And there's, besides children, there's no one in our community that's more important than taking care of our veterans. So I'm very, very proud and happy to do this
Very good.
successful.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
if
go
I may.
ahead, Paul.
And the one thing I'd like to just add on, I echo all the sentiments that were mentioned by previous council people. So thank you for the great comments. I also wanted to say thanks for everybody who came out, including the veterans and those who were supporting the update. And the one thing I would like to say, maybe Chris, it wasn't as clear, at least for me, it wasn't as clear. The one great thing here is that this now is going to put in place a policy that will continue to slide as cost of living increases slide. So it's not a one-time thing like we've done in the past, and then it might get forgotten about for a few years. This now guarantees that going forward, every time there's a cost of living increase, there will be an increase that corresponds to this for the future. So I think that this is a great thing for all the veterans in our community. So thanks everybody for coming out.
Yeah. Anybody else? Yes,
Madam
go
Chair?
ahead,
Thank
Tom.
you. I think everyone has said what I was going to say, but I do want to send a special thank you to Rachel in her new role. I know the Veterans Committee has had very successful events at the Calendar House with the coffee hours. And for veterans that are in the room tonight, if you don't know Rachel, please get to know her because, I've sat up here in 2015. I was proud to support the tax exemption. And tonight, as Councilman Chaplinsky just mentioned, this is a great thing for this council and for future councils. And most importantly, it's to help the veterans that need it most. So I'm proud of what the town offers the veterans, and I'm proud to work with people such as Rachel and her committee. So thank you again and a special thank you to the resident that brought this up, because if that resident hadn't brought it up, we may not have addressed this issue because maybe we wouldn't have known about it. So that's a very important part of citizen input. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Yes, of course. Jack?
Madam Chair, I'd like to just echo everyone else's sentiments on this and want to thank all the veterans for their service. And I think this is the least that we can do, especially, being on a fixed income. This is, again, our residents in our town, and they've served our country. So just want to thank them for their service.
Very good. So anyone else? Okay. I want to thank everybody who has spoken and those on the dais who have expressed themselves also. I feel as everyone else has, and I'm sure most of us feel that way. So if there's nothing else, we're going to close down the public hearing at this point. Is that all right with everybody? Very good. We're going to close the public hearing, and we're going to go right into our town council meeting for Monday, January 24th, 2022. It's a little after 7. It's almost 7:15. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
William Dietzick.
Here.
Tom Lombardi.
Here.
James Morelli.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here.
Jack Perry.
Here.
Paul Chaplinsky.
Here.
Michael Del Santo.
Present.
Valerie DiPaolo.
Here.
Victoria Triano.
I'm here also. Could we all stand for the prayer followed by the flag salute? I would like, if someone, Sue, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance when we get to that point? Thank you. Paul, you have the prayer, right?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Heavenly Father, we ask that you would keep your hand upon us as we commit ourselves to the citizens of Southington. We pray for wisdom and clarity in our decision-making, and we humbly ask for continued blessings upon Southington. Amen.
Amen. Let us all join with the flag salute. All right, could I have a motion, please, for our minutes from our last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 10th council meeting.
Thank you, Chris. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second, Madam Chair.
Any discussion on the minutes?
Madam Chair, can
Yes.
I just make one clarification? And I did speak with Lisa. So she just needs to change Councilman DiPaolo to councilperson.
Yes.
We spoke about it.
And that's done. Anything else? Since there's no further discussion, may I have move the motion, please?
Motion to approve. Oh, sorry. We've already got a motion.
got it.
Do we need
So
the
move
amendment?
All
Do we
those
need to
in,
do another amendment?
Amend the
though?
motion.
We're all set?
yeah, I don't think we have to, yeah. All
Otherwise-
those in favor, signify
Sorry,
by
guys.
saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you very much. It passes. We're going to move on to item 3, councilperson communication. And so I would like to call on Paul first. I think, Paul, you had
Yeah.
a few things.
Madam Chair, I have 2 items that I wanted to just recognize. The first is we had a really nice, as everybody knows, Martin Luther King Day was last week, and it's often known as a day of community service. And there was somebody in the community who reached out. His name is Scott Nolan. Scott came with 6 other people and raised his hand and said, we really would like to do a community service project, and reached out to our assistant town planner and we were able to work with Scott and their group to identify trails at Novik's Orchard on Flanders to reblaze those trails, meaning to spray paint all of the trailhead colors so that people could use the trails and not get lost. And as well as do some maintenance on the grounds. There are in some areas a lot of invasive species that kind of start to creep in on the trails, especially as they narrow down. And they were kind enough to walk all the trails in the area. They spent the better part of a half a day doing that, cleared all the trails, took photos, shared them with us, and they had a GPS unit with them. So as they traversed the trails, they actually had created even more precise trail markings and maps for the trails, which we will post to our site so that others who want to enjoy the trails will have an accurate location of the trail for the future. So thank you to Scott Nolan and the entire group that came out on Martin Luther King Day last week.
Very good.
The last item, there was an article in the Record Journal, Madam Chair, about the linear trail, and some questions had came up about the article, and I had received the call from the president of Yard Metals, Mr. Matt Smith. We had a really pleasant discussion, and it was nice to see that in the discussion, Mr. Smith had offered to just continue the dialogue with us and with the state of Connecticut, and expressed an openness to to find solutions that worked out for everybody. So I wanted to reach out and just say thank you to Matt Smith and Yard Metals for continuing the dialogue and hopefully getting us to a better place with getting our trail connected in the future.
Yeah. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay. Who else has any councilperson's communication?
Madam Chair, I have something briefly. This Thursday at 4 o'clock is our first Town Green Revitalization Subcommittee. Just wanted to remind everyone, I know we spoke about it at the last meeting, so we're looking forward to getting together with that group. We're going to throw some ideas back and forth, and I'll be reporting out to the Town Council how that meeting goes at our next meeting. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. Anybody else? Councilmatic Communications. Yes, go on, Chris.
A couple things. In front of us, we have from Steps a community forum that's being offered March 10th from 6 to 8 p.m. right in our calendar house. So if anyone's interested, they can RSVP right through Steps. And again, it's March 10th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the calendar house. Walk-ins are welcome as well, but it helps if people could RSVP ahead of time so they can plan. I also had the pleasure of attending the last Board of Education meeting and both budget workshops. So I just want to thank the chair, Colleen Clark, who's here, and the superintendent, Mr. Madanski, for their work outlining the budget. And at the last Board of Education meeting, I just want to acknowledge former board member Bob Brown was recognized. So I'd like to thank the chair for doing that. Bob had a long service, including being a teacher at Southington High School, president of the Teachers Union, and then moved on to the Board of Education, and really puts kids first always. So I just want to thank the board for recognizing him for his many years of service.
Thank you. I did want to recognize Mr. Madanski is here, and we're gonna bring you up in a little while. Is that all right, Steve? Thank you so much. Who else has something? Yes, Jack.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I first want to thank the Southington PD for showing up at short notice and you taking the proactive approach on having them here tonight. I definitely think that we have a nice civil group with us. So again, I got your email about that. So wanted to thank the Southington PD for showing up at short notice. I also had a resident reach out to me in regards to their water quality over on Scenic Drive, and they sent me some photos, and they've been in contact with the town. So I'm going to follow up with an email to Mark and forwarding those photos. But there's definitely some concerns over there with the testing that he's done, and just, again, the buildup that you could see inside of his toilet bowl and all of his house appliances. So.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're going to notify the water
Sure. As soon as I
department.
get it from Jack, I'll talk
That'd be
to
great.
Doug about it.
Very good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Yes, come on, Tom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some brief announcements. Not just in Southington, but statewide, nationwide, there's a serious problem going on with blood shortages. We see it all the time, and I'm guilty of it. I did not donate blood in 2021 at all. 2020 was the last time I did it. So this is such a major problem in our society with such an easy fix. So with that, Valentine the Clown, who's a local legend,
Right.
is taking part in sponsoring or taking part in her festivities on Saturday, February 12th at the AquaTurf. So I encourage people to join me in signing up on AmericanRedCross.com and giving blood. It's just such a simple thing to do that we can help our fellow citizens with that. And
Me up, Tom.
all right. Well, you're going to have to go in and put your info in. It's very easy, but I'll meet you there.
Okay.
Next, I just want to thank fellow counselors who've donated or have signed up to participate in the Polar Plunge, which is Saturday, February 26th. So far, I have confirmation that Councilman Diedzik and Councilman Morelli will be jumping with me. I also have confirmation that Superintendent of Schools, Steve Madanski, will be a financial donor, and that the town manager will be a financial donor. So that's very,
I'll be happy to donate.
very kind of them. So Saturday, February 26th.
It will be a sight to behold.
Right.
I just want you to.
And the other thing I wanted to mention is I did read the article regarding the last Board of Ed meeting regarding the facilities upgrade. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to supporting. I know Councilwoman DiPaolo and myself are very interested in seeing that the softball facilities get upgraded to bring it up from the 2015 state ruling. So some very good things that are on the horizon for the facilities upgrade, and I look forward to supporting that 100%. So thank you.
Very good. Yes, Bill.
So I just want to speak real briefly. So next time we meet, probably the governor will have extended his executive powers for a 7th time. I just want to speak on that briefly. So, 7 times extending executive powers outside the context of World War III. Again, I believe COVID is real. All those things, it justifies it to a degree. But we're going to extend a 7th time now. So the question I'm starting to get now for the 7th time is, what is the legislature's plan? So anyone here tonight who is going to speak about this, I would want to know, what is your legislature's plan? What is our path out of this? Because honestly, he's probably going to extend it an 8th time. What is the plan? How are we going to stop an 8th extension, right? So for the 7th is done, he's going to extend the 7th time. How do we stop the 8th? What are the legislatures doing to stop the 8th? Literally, the governor is ruling. I'm not going to call it ruling like a king. He rules over a 5-member panel where he sits on. He has the 3rd vote, and he has 2 Democrats on there. So really, he has the votes in hand at any time. But again, I want to stress it. What is our legislature doing? So anyone here tonight, please contact your legislature and please let me know, what is your legislature doing? Does the governor not trust our legislature? Does he not trust the delegates? We need a path out of it. Forget the 7th. He's going to extend it. It's too late. What is he going to do on the 8th? Can we stop the 8th, please? So ask your legislature, what are they going to do to stop the 8th extension?
Thank you, Bill. Absolutely. Anybody else? I have just a couple of things. I just spoke with Councilwoman DiPaolo. There's a lot of talk about transportation right now, and it's been going on for years. And so we have formally requested from the Department of Transportation a formal letter to the town outlining some of the facts about providing transportation in Southington and what the plan is for that. And after a lot of consideration, I think it's important that once we get that written report from the State Department of Transportation, that we should have a formal town council forum. And at the forum, we will be able to discuss things. The state will be there, and we'll start to get some idea when, if, how. But right now, we have a lot of questions, and so we'll look forward to that. I also wanted to let the council know, I got a phone call from Megan Albanese, who is the head now of STEPS, and I've invited her to our February 14th council meeting for a discussion about what's going on in STEPS. We've heard in other communities, fentanyl and cocaine and other very serious overdoses are children. And STEPS is really working very hard to stop that risky behavior. Chris is on the committee right now, and Chris has been on for a long, long time. I was on it for a long, long time. So Megan's going to be here, and I think that that's going to be very good. The last thing I just want to give an update on is that all of the legislators have been invited to come on the last meeting of February to our town council. We'll give them an opportunity to address us and for us to ask questions of them and be able to meet them. Some of us have never met certain legislators, even though they're from our district, and we also have a new legislator, Dr. Bill Pettit. And so we're waiting to hear. Representative Veach has responded, and so she'll be coming, and I will be personally calling our legislators to encourage them to come to be able to dialogue with the council for a little while at that meeting. We'll try to keep the rest of the agenda kind of light so we can have a meaningful dialogue with our legislators. And if there's questions and if there's things that we can work together on, then I think that would be terrific. So those are the three things that I have for tonight.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Which meeting is Megan speaking at?
Megan is coming on the first one. I think it's the 14th.
Okay.
The first meeting. And the other thing I wanted to mention to the members of the council, she has offered to, after the meeting, to have a session with us to teach us about using Narcan and training us in Narcan. It's not a long process. It is relatively short, but she is going, there's a group, I think, that would like to be trained in the use of Narcan, and in case we're ever in a situation where we're the only one there or whatever. So that's on the 14th. After the meeting, we'll try not to have an executive session that night, but if we have to, we have to, but we'll do the training first and then get into the executive session. So those are my points I wanted to make. I wanted to get Steve up here now. Is that okay, Mark, with you? Yes.
I just wanted to give a brief update.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Jim. Go ahead, please.
No problem. People have been asking about the library building committee.
Yes.
And we posted the request for quote for the construction manager last Friday. We're allowing a couple of weeks for responses, so we're closing that request for bid on February 15th. We are sending out the request for quote for the architect on February 1st with a close at March 1st. And our next board meeting, or our next committee meeting, will be March 2nd to start reviewing that information. So we have actually kicked off that project.
Very good. Thank you so much, Jim. I would like to invite our superintendent of schools, Steve Madanski. Would you come on up, Steve? We just want to, you've always been so gracious with Mark and I at the BOE meetings. We would just like to listen to what's going on and where y'all are. I know the budget is, you've hit the ground running with the budget. So
Yes.
Please feel free.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To the council that I'm seeing again since May, congratulations on your reelection, and Councilor Perry, congratulations on your election. Yes, so far, you know, the last time we spoke in May, a big chunk of that conversation was about the 3 remaining elementary schools to be renovated. And at the time, we were talking about Flanders, Kelly, and Elementary. I think the big question around Daranoski School was what to do with that piece of property, given the fact that we could not renovate to new because part of the state formula is right sizing in order of being eligible for reimbursement. In order to be eligible for reimbursement on renovating the existing structure to new, we'd have to have a population of 1,000 students. The state does not support, nor do I, an elementary school of 1,000 students. That is not our neighborhood school. I don't think it's in the best interest of kids. So with that being said, Town Manager Shota and I, in early conversations with the state in October, received good news that essentially if we were to build on the Daranoski property, a brand new school behind Daranoski, that part of the demolition of the existing structure would be reimbursed by the state, which would be a tremendous savings to the community, as you know, because of the hazardous material disposal that comes with, demolition and renovations. With that said, we lost a lot of momentum. So we had done the pre-referendum work that we had told you about in May over the summer, the environmental assessments, the test fits, the feasibility studies, the educational specifications, only to have the person who was the director at the Office of School Construction and Grants Management resign fairly abruptly 2 weeks after that meeting. And at that point, he was actually slated to come to Southington, look at the 3 facilities, and essentially sign off that they were aged out and that the town should consider renovate to new status. So we lost a good chunk of time there. In that time, we've continued to work. We're working right now on the enrollment and feasibility study, both for the facilities and for elementary school enrollment, and also trying to project out. Because one of the things the state will require is a guarantee of enrollment on any facilities that we were to build as new. What came back with the pre-referendum work this summer was a few tells. Daranoski, there is adequate space behind Daranoski School to build a new Daranoski School that would fit the enrollment and the community, as well as a Karen Smith Academy on that existing parcel. So that was a positive. Flanders was a challenge because the ideal space for Flanders, considering the wetlands that are on that property, is where Flanders currently sits. And the challenge there is you don't have swing space during a construction project. And then lastly, Kelly Elementary School was the ideal parcel. It had a tremendous amount of land, and it's an easy fit in terms of a new building. And in terms of swing space, you could be essentially building a new Kelly school while the students maintain their enrollment at Kelly and then eventually transition over to the new building. Having been the principal at Kennedy Middle School during that renovation, it was 9 phases over 2.5 years when we did a renovate to new with students enrolled in school and actively and during the school day, and it was a challenge. We did it, and it was a wonderful project, and the results are outstanding. Thinking about the challenges posed to elementary age school children during a renovate to new project, I'm not sure if that's ideal. Couple that with the fact that I think we can offer more to our students with state-of-the-art 21st century schools. A renovate to new project would be ideal. With that said, we talked about the need for 8 schools or 7 schools down the road. And I really think that we owe it to our community to engage in dialogue on what that looks like and what that means for everyone. Because it wouldn't impact just 3 elementary schools at that point. It would involve a redistricting because there's some shifting enrollment that would have, for a better word, a ripple effect, for lack of a better word. And I think that's where families have to understand the impact on them. People who purchased homes with hopes of going to certain schools or in certain districts, that could impact them. And so that's not something, and as the town manager and our board chair talked about it, we felt we could rush to referendum in November on. Even though we're at a decent space with the pre-referendum work and getting an application to the state by June, that doesn't satisfy the dialogue that the community deserves. And so our conversation at that point was just looking at the long-term capital improvement projects and plans that are on the docket, so to speak. And the piece for 2023 that caught our eye was the athletic facilities and the roofs at both the high school and Hatton Elementary School. And the athletic facilities, it was mentioned earlier, there was some work already going on in the baseball softball field based on the OCR review in 2015. But that in itself, by moving those couple fields, starts the ripple effect at the athletic facilities. But I think it's an opportunity for the community as well. I know all of you received questions or concerns from the community about the bleachers at Southington High School, and given the age of them and with lack of rails and the depth of the steps, a lot of our elderly families and grandparents and seniors in the community that come to different school events have a hard time navigating those bleachers. We also have to get them, an engineer review every year to make sure structurally they're sound because they're aging. The track is worn. If anybody's been on the track lately, you can see that, to the point that we're not sure what the outdoor track season is going to look like at the high school. The turf facility is right about where we said it would be. 10 years is when it needs to be either refurbished or replaced. And the tennis courts, anybody who uses those in the town understand that their cracks are large enough to put a cell phone flat right down in them, and could be a safety hazard as well. Our maintenance department has done a wonderful job filling them and sealing them, but it doesn't last long because the expansion and contraction of it's just a temporary Band-Aid on a longer problem. And I think with an athletic facilities upgrade, we can offer more to the community because a lot of the youth in our town use a lot of the school fields. I'll use Daranoski as an example. My own daughter played a game behind Daranoski School a couple months back, and the field's it's in rough shape, and it's not through anybody's fault per se, but I think a lot of other communities and towns have athletic facilities where they host the travel sports, the neighborhood sports, the community teams. And I think the high school with the refurbished facility, that would benefit not only the high school sports programs, but the Parks and Recreation department in the community. And for a lot of a town our size to be able to host community events, whether it's a youth lacrosse tournament or youth soccer tournament, and have it all on one campus or at one facility is a great opportunity, especially in terms of fundraising for a lot of those youth sports, because when you can host a tournament, there's a lot of revenue that comes with that, which would be of benefit to the youth sports. As far as the budget, it's still at this point my proposed budget, and our board will deliberate further this Thursday evening at what at such time it'll become their budget. Some high-level highlights from the budget: there are no new personnel in this budget. I have not asked for any staff. There are no projects and equipment. There are no special projects. So what you will see eventually being passed on to our Board of Finance is consistent with just the contractual bargaining unit increases that we're obligated to through collective bargaining, and the purchase services that we're required to provide in order to make sure we're meeting the FAPE requirement each year as a district. And so we put a lot of thought into it, but I think the deliberations were easier this year because if there's nothing being proposed in any of the categories, there's not a lot of debate of what stays and what goes. So understanding that we have to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers in the community, I think the comments relative to the veterans this evening were fitting, in terms of just trying to be fiscally responsible and bring a budget before you that does that, but also meets the obligations of the district and provides an education for the students that will move us forward.
Thank you. I'm going to, I don't want to put the superintendent on a hot seat, but if there's anybody in the council that might want to ask a question of the superintendent, now is the time. Okay, it's not going to be like forever, right? Steve doesn't have any notes. He's got to wing it,
You have until about 9, right?
Sure.
Just a couple easy questions, I think, that are going to be layups for you. But just to confirm, I know when we did first of all, I support the athletic fields. I mean, we have some deficiencies there with respect to some of the things that Tom and Val have talked about in the past. So those are things we have to take care of. I think most of the stuff that you're talking about is in the master plan that we've been working on along the years. So this isn't just new stuff that's coming up.
Correct.
We're not waving a magic wand and going, oh, we want to work on this now. This is stuff that's been in the planning. It's been on your master plan. I know I've seen it in the past. So thanks for confirming that. And then the other question, or maybe clarification, since we do have a number of residents here, when the turf field was first put in place, there was also a fund that was created because I think we were close to $1 million, roughly, give or take, right? And I think the purpose of creating a fund at the time was to start to make headway at the costs to replace the field and the track in the future once we needed it, once we got to this 10 years. And I know 10 year was the number.
Yep.
So how close did we come to fully funding that or partially funding that?
Good question. To give you the exact balance right now would be difficult, but in terms of what the design of it was and the purpose and what the fund is for people that are here this evening hearing this for the first time, the board contributes $25,000 a year from the operating budget to the turf fund, and we also have sales for both rental of the fields and tickets of the to not only CIAC sports but youth registrations in town all go towards the turf fund to offset the cost of replacement. I know it's several $100,000 is what we've accrued in there, but what that exact amount is against what the replacement cost is, I don't know that 10 years ago we could project what the replacement cost would be, given the cost of inflation and labor at this point.
Okay.
But it would put a nice dent in that, and so I think it was great foresight by both the board and the council at the time.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Anybody else? Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Just a comment. As I mentioned, I attended the budget workshops, And on the town end, the question came up about the energy consultant. So just to share back, our current energy consultant is Alberio Energy, and they are based out of New York. So we're actually going out to bid again for them. And we've had them for about 6 years. I'm trying to think of some of the questions that were asked. The share is approximately the Board of Ed contribution, 50%, and then the town and the water department, 50%.
Correct.
And the board's contribution is $7,500. So I think the question was, how long have we had them, which is 6 years, what the contribution amount is, and then how much the town contributes as well. So just wanted to share that with you and Mrs. Clark to bring back to the Board of Education.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions? Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming, Mr. Madanski.
Sure.
We,
Thank you. And,
look forward
you know,
to the future.
I appreciate the invite, and I also want to thank Town Manager Schroeder for coming to our meeting Thursday evening. I think it was a nice dialogue with the two of us to be able to inform the board that, you know, similar to what Councilman Chaplinsky said, it's not a project that we're pulling out of the air. These are projects that we've been discussing, and I think it's a shell game in terms of what makes the most sense for the community and the timing of things. And essentially, all this is a swap of the two major years of referendum for Board of Education facilities.
Very good. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge Mrs. Clark, the chairperson of our Board of Education. Thank you, Colleen.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move right on to the report of special committees. The Apple Harvest Festival Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilman Palmera and myself met on Wednesday, January 12th with the Apple Harvest Committee. Yeah, we actually covered a lot of material that evening. First, we approved the vendor booth fees and the arts and crafts fees to be the same as this past year. So no increase there. The electrical vendor will again be Bussett Electric. He's done a great job for the festival for years. He also agreed to keep his price the same. Our carnival vendor will be Morena Amusements. We've used them for many years, and they have also agreed to maintain their same pricing. Lighting and entertainment, we are going to use Joe from Thunder and Lightning and Jerry Limmer. Again, same pricing. And lastly, we reviewed the actual 2021 budget number. Sorry, not budget, the actual financials from 2021, and I believe I handed a copy out to everyone tonight. I will be submitting a copy to the town clerk for submission into tonight's minutes. But in summary, the Apple Harvest Committee for fiscal year 2021 put forth a profit of $34,294.50. And we also added a side note at the bottom of our document that there was an expenditure of $10,000 in 2020 when the festival was canceled. That was directly related to 2021. So I view it as approximately a $24,000 profit, which was a fantastic year. Great weather and a great operation there. Lastly, regarding the financial report, I also wanted to thank Jackie from the finance department. This was her first year taking over for Ann, who retired a year or two ago. So Jackie did a great job working with Dave LaPre, our festival coordinator. Lastly, we put forth a preliminary budget for the 2022 festival. And there was some discussion. We've been extremely successful the last 3 years with national act bands. However, the committee decided that we were going to go back to just local bands, just strictly due to the cost. And this way here, we don't have to worry about cancellation fees or anything like that. And that was a majority vote in favor by the committee. And Councilman Palmera, is there anything else you'd like to add to that?
With the budget itself, I would actually, I know you mentioned it was really 24,000. I'd say it was more like 29,000. And the reason I say that is because based on the success this year and the contribution the festival makes to the community, at the first meeting after the festival, we had made a motion to donate approximately $5,000 to local charities. $2,000 is going to the Salvation Army, which is helping families right in Southington in need, basically community services. And then $3,000 went to the United Way of Southington. So again, because it was such a lucrative festival, we felt we were in a position to do that. So that's really another $5,000 that's going right back in the community to help those in need.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And I think I mentioned last time too, United Way received a donation from the Apple Harvest Committee because they're directly involved with the apple harvest. They man a beverage booth, which helps us out tremendously. So that's why we chose United Way. So any questions on apple harvest?
Just a brief comment. Chris and Tom, great job as usual. The crown jewel of Southington, the Apple Harvest Festival, is in good hands, along with Mr. LaPrey and his office and the work that they do. I've said it time and time again. You can go there at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night. You see these two guys running around, and they're always working. So it's in good hands. We look forward to the Apple Harvest again this year, and great job making some money. That's fabulous. Great job.
And I'll submit this to Tom.
Very good. Bill, can you report on the sewer committee?
Thanks, Mike. I love that segue into my exciting sewer committee.
Well, the crown
No national
jewel
bands, no national
sewer
flags.
size now. Good.
To the sewers.
Just briefly, got a short meeting. Two major items. One, we were briefed in executive session regarding the reps and warranties with one of our subs by the town attorney. I don't know if the town attorney is going to speak about it. It's not my position to speak about it, but I feel very confident after that executive session. Secondly, we put on our agenda a long-term financial strategy. No action was taken, but what we're going to try to do is, we spend a substantial amount of money as a town on our sewer plant. So any sort of economies of scale or savings, we want to look at it. So what are we going to do? So we're going to look at potentially reducing rates, potentially spending some of our excess cash. Some good counterpoints are brought up about, really let's figure out how long we've been operating, things like that. So no action was taken, but those discussions are going to start to be had. Val, anything else?
Well, I wasn't able to be at the meeting, but I did go through the minutes, and I thought that it's important that the pump stations that were using the American Rescue funds, that those are getting started. So it's that's just good to see. That's
Excellent.
moving along.
Any
And
questions for the sewer
Sewer
committee?
committee is the best committee, right?
I think so. I'm going to just go on and talk about our first committee of the chairs meeting. We all have minutes from it right here. It was just kind of a meet and greet and talk a little bit about where we all were, and you can look at the updates of each of the committees of the different boards and commissions for yourself as you review it. It was a very promising time. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that time just set aside to look at where we are as a community and interact with each other, and our community can't go forward if we're all independently going in different directions. When we come together and start moving together, it's very exciting and wonderful. I want to thank all of the chairs of the committees that were represented. Mr. Madanski was there, Mark was there, and the rest of the committees were represented by their chairs. So that's all I have on the committee of the chairs. So let's move right on to the.
Can I just ask a question?
Oh, of course.
One of the points that's that I noticed in the minutes, it's talking about charter revision.
Yes.
So this is the first reading it in the minute. It's the
Yeah.
first I've ever heard of that, and
Yep.
that's really not something to be taken lightly when
Of
you're
course
opening
not.
the charter.
Of course not.
So I'm just surprised to hear about that for the first time in minutes.
Well, because
versus-
we're not there just yet. We're still talking about it. My feeling is that, and our feeling is on this side of the table, is that we do need a charter revision on a very focused area that we'll talk more about. We're not doing anything on it right now. I'd like to introduce it next month, and then we can talk about it and we can discuss the elements of it. You're right, it's a very serious thing to open up the charter.
And so again, I just ask respectfully moving forward. You mentioned that people on your side of the table, but we had no knowledge whatsoever about this. So I'd ask that we be included because it is really, this committee represents the town council as a
course.
body. So for us not to have any knowledge about that,
Yep.
it's
Once we felt that we were ready, that we were going to go forward, we said we would bring it up to everybody in February. And we'll talk about it. We'll be able to discuss it, what the thoughts are, and then we can discuss it. And you're right, it's very important, and I agree with you. But there are certain things that I think that we need to charge the committee with, to look at and be very focused in it. We both have gone through charter revisions. We understand that. So it wasn't meant to exclude anybody. It was just thinking out loud that we have certain things that I think we need to address to make our town even better. So we'll talk more about it, and certainly anybody over there on that side who wants to add things and talk about it, and let's open up the discussion for openly, okay?
Madam Chair?
Trying very hard to do that. Yes, Jack.
So if you could just, at your next meeting, modify the minutes to reflect that, because it says right here that Ms. Triano went on to say that the town council is looking forward to open the charter revision. So if we could just modify those minutes at your next meeting would be definitely appreciated.
Modify to say that we are looking at opening the charter rather than looking forward to it. How do you want me to change it, Jack?
Well, you wouldn't change it. You would clarify at the next meeting what
Very
you meant
good.
by that.
That's
Because you
fine.
can't really change what was already said. So,
Yeah, exactly. So,
Well, just to add along, that's my point earlier, that we had no knowledge of that, so.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. As a clarification with the next meeting would be just that. It was
Right.
simply saying that she could clarify and simply say, but I mentioned the statement at the last committee of the chairs. What I meant to say was our caucus was discussing, something of that
right,
nature.
that's all. Very good, thank you.
I have one more thing, Madam Chair.
Sure.
So you mentioned, obviously including all of us on that, and I think that's, a great effort because obviously a charter revision is something really big and it affects our town for multiple years. I guess, obviously that brings up, my concern is, again, this committee obviously is appointed, and I'm just, this is a question, I guess, to our town attorney. Is this committee in following the guidelines of Section 204 in our charter?
Jack, if I could just answer, and then, of course, Alex. There's no one that serves from the town council on the charter revision committee. We get together and we appoint a committee. And they're the ones that take it after their chairman will be appointed, and they will take it from there. So it's not a council, the council is not involved in the charter revision committee. The charter revision committee runs itself. And so we give them the charge. If we want them to look at a certain area of the charter, if we want them to look at certain difficulties that maybe have appeared, or departments that have said it's not working or whatever. So that's how that flows.
Yeah, I wasn't referring to that.
Oh, I thought
I
you
was
were.
referring to the committee of the chairs in
And you're-
regards to following Section 204 in our charter.
Which is,
Again, I just was trying to figure out, again, that the committee of chairs is an appointed committee. Is that correct?
the committee of the chairs is what?
Is it an appointed committee?
No, I'm the one that asked the chairs of the different committees to come together. So all of the individuals that are listed are all chairs of the different committees. Mrs. Clark is from the Board of Education. Mr. Ramsey is the chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. The superintendent was there. John Leary is the Board of Finance, and I'm the town council chair.
So again, I guess my question is to our town attorney again, is that, again, Chapter 2 in our charter, Section 204, if you could just look into that.
I can
Yeah.
answer now. It probably shouldn't be called a committee because it's not a committee. It's a meeting of the chairs. So if it was an appointed committee, it would absolutely fall under the charter. But I know it's labeled as a committee, and it has been as far as
For as
I
long
can
as I've
remember.
known, yeah.
But it probably is being mislabeled. It could be renamed to something more. A meeting of the chairs.
Meeting of the chairs would be fine. Would you feel better if we called it meeting of the chairs?
No, I just was curious because I looked at, the previous committee of the chairs, and it did follow the Section 204. So
Yes.
again, that's obviously, it's not now, so that was just something I wanted to
The
bring.
luck of the draw, because what happens is that if a D was a chair, they'd be on, and if an R is a chair, they're on. So it's the luck of the
Right.
draw. Whoever happens to be the chair of that particular cycle. So that's probably what it was.
Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, just suggest we rename that.
Meeting of the chairs.
Meeting of the chairs? Absolutely. Okay, let's move on. Town managers report?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening to everybody. The first is the Board of Finance. We had a nice meeting of the Board of Finance. We did go over our our energy. The energy consultant, Bill Reardon, was there. Unfortunately, tonight, he was supposed to give that presentation to this board, but he fell sick this weekend, and he will not be here. We're trying to schedule it for the 14th. And we may not, depending on what the 14th is, I know you want to keep that meeting pretty short, but hopefully we can get that
Yes,
on the
sure.
agenda, okay?
Sure.
If you wanted to see the presentation before he actually presents to you, it's definitely, it's available for you at the Board of Finance meeting. A couple of things, revenue is still in the very, very big positives. We're well up on revenue. The two departments that are leading the way are the building department and the town clerk's office. So revenues are very positive. Couple of the big things that are on is, number one is for sewer. The sewer committee has asked for and received permission from the Board of Finance, and of course now this board, to allocate $1 million from their undesignated fund balance to continue on with the lining. As you know, it's been a many-year plan to get the old borough relined. So we've done that a couple of times now. So we're pretty close. I think we're about 80%, Bill?
I think something
Yeah,
like that.
so we're about the 80 percentile doing the old boroughs. The old borough, as you know, are very large clay pipes that are over 100 years old, and I don't have to tell you if something collapses in a clay pipe in a main sewer line, there's a lot of problems with that. So we're very happy about that part of it. Also, the town did receive an additional $200,000 for a brownfield grant. We're using that for the Beaton and Corbin site. I know that Mr. Perillo briefed everybody on that last time he was here. And then finally, let's see, we had a couple of other transfers, and the Board of Finance now is going to be very busy because on the 18th of February, they'll be getting my budget, and they'll start all their workshops and their public hearings at that point. Any questions on the
Any
Board of Finance?
questions, Tom? Yes, go ahead, Paul.
I have one, Madam Chair. For the town manager, in the pre-read, Mark, from the energy report, just, I might be reading it wrong, but it'd be great if when the energy consultant comes out to have some clarification on, because I know a couple times that they've come, they didn't have some of the answers. They had to come back to us. It'd be great if they had some answers on it looks like they listed some costs of electricity per unit. And some of the costs look like they were in the 8 cents in the 8 cents range and per kilowatt hour. And for example, when I purchase electricity myself and I change suppliers, I'm paying less than that. So I'm curious to know what that number actually represents. Are we paying that amount under a contract? Because right now the rates seem to be lower than what's shown there. That could be a savings for all I know. I'm not 100% sure.
Most of that is savings, because if you're talking about a higher rate, you're not talking about transportation. So your bill consists of about 50-50, production versus transportation. So when you have the power purchase agreements, and he'll explain that to you, he'll be able to explain it to you easier. But when you're talking
generation
about, for instance,
only.
yeah, when you're talking generation costs,
Right.
but you're not talking about transportation costs. So when you have a solar panel, for instance, it's an automatic savings because you're not paying 50% of your normal bill because you don't have a transportation rate. So he'll be able to explain it much better than I can. But,
Okay. Thanks.
And we hope to have him here at your next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other further questions on that?
Any questions for the town manager at all?
The next item is also from Bill's committee. They're asking for a permission to spend a contract with Martin Lavero for $21,112, which includes the contingency. This is to put netting over at the plant, the phosphorus removal plant, to make sure that the materials such as leaves, twigs, etc., do not go into the tanks, because obviously that'll cause serious damage. So that was recommended by the sewer committee, approved by the Board of Finance, and administration asked you to support it also. Any questions on that? Finally was the energy report, and like I mentioned before, Bill is ill, so we'll have that the next meeting.
Good.
No executive session tonight, Madam Chair.
Very good. Anybody have any questions for the town manager before we move on? Hearing none, let's move right on to the town attorney's report, please. Aren't you good? Thank you very much, Attorney Riccadone. All right. Okay, so welcome everybody. We are entering into public communications. I want to just welcome all of you who are here today. We would ask you, as you come to the podium, you give your name and address. We allow 5 minutes. We do not we don't allow relinquishing your time to give to someone else. But you will have 5 minutes, and we're here to listen. We will not respond in any way. We're here to listen to you. We will treat you with the utmost respect, and we would like that back. So if you would like to, please come forward and give your name and address, and we will listen. Thank you.
Susan Zabahansky, Plantsville. Good evening, Madam Chair, and to our fellow council people. First, I'd like to congratulate you all on your reelection. I haven't been here since you've been elected, and Mr. Perry on your election to the council. The town of Southington spoke pretty loudly that they're looking for the majority party on this council to represent them and the principles on which this party stands. It's clear to me that the people in Southington recognize the course that this state and country are headed in, a course which consists of one-man rule, an erosion of basic American principles and values, and a loss of our system of a limited representative government where the American people have the most influential voices. We want to see that changed. We're here today as your constituents to give you the support and encouragement you may need to restore your full role as our representatives in the town of Southington. Governor Lamont has bound the hands of our local elected officials on this council and the Board of Education for far too long. And we, the people of Southington, are imploring you all to have the courage to send a message to the Democrat majority in Hartford that you guys demand to regain your role as our representatives when it comes to enacting policies and procedures for the pandemic, for our town, and for our schools. Enough is enough with one-man executive power. You've sat silent for far too long, and it's time for you to join with our state legislators, Senator Rob Sampson and Representative Gail Mastrofrancesco, who have been speaking out publicly since well before it was a popular position to take. Their wisdom at seeing the gross overreach of Ned Lamont and the majority party in the state and the damage that this one-man rule is doing to the residents of Southington and across Connecticut is appreciated by many. Their courage to take this position early on has led the way for their fellow Republicans to now follow suit. It is now time for you all to publicly stand with them and send a message to the Democratic majority in the state that the Southington Town Council wants to do the job that they were elected to do, which is to represent the residents of Southington who have entrusted you all with our votes. Who better to make decisions than this council, who have the knowledge and devotion to this town and who have voluntarily dedicated their time to represent the voices of the people. The time is now. We're asking that you join us in calling for an end to Lamont's executive rule and the mandates that have directly resulted in the loss of people's businesses, income, and retirements. They've severely impacted our children's mental health and their education, and has directly or indirectly caused a rise in crime and inflation that will have an impact on all of those who are on fixed incomes. This will take our state and our country decades to recover from. Your inaction is acceptance, and we want you to be our voice. And to Mr. Dezik's comments, I'm not sure if you guys know this, but there's less than 1/4 of Americans that trust their elected officials to do the right thing most of the time. The reason is because we often catch our elected officials making promises they can't keep, ignoring our needs, and denying our freedoms. Americans think that the answer to create real and lasting change is with a new presidency or a governor recall, but the truth is that our elected officials locally carry the most influence and impact on our daily life and well-being and our freedoms. In order to protect us from big government, our Constitution says that our local supervisors are supposed to stand up for us. But when they fail to do so, when they fail to uphold the Constitution and stand up for our basic freedoms, it's our job to hold them accountable. If that feels impossible, I'm sorry, but I've seen change happen all over the state. Our our elected officials, our representatives at the state level have been all over the state educating people on the process and talking about how we need to enact change. And unfortunately, our government has grown too big at the state level. And this is the place where we need to start change. And it's going to change from the bottom up, from the people who are closest to our representatives here. And that's how we'll see change in the state. I hope you'll join us. Thank you.
Hi, Pat Tivolazzi, 99 Westbrook Road in Plantsville. Thank you. I'm going to read a little bit from someone else's right quickly. As you are aware, the governor's emergency mandates are coming up for extension soon. I would like to show my support for an end to these mandates. I have talked to many citizens of the detrimental effects that these mandates have had on our children, parents, workers, and business owners. I'm going to add grandparents to that as well. I encourage you to do all you can to inform the state legislature of our desire to end the emergency status as soon as possible. We're not in a state of emergency. And return to our health the decisions back to the parents and citizens of our town. I feel a letter of concern from the town council would have a positive impact on that decision. And I thank you for your time and your importance in this most critical matter. I spoke at the hearing at the State Board of Education quite a few times. The other day I started it with this, and I think it has a segue into what I want to tell you. Have you noticed how comical the quarantine and mask recommendations have become in our state? First it's 14 days, 10 days, and 5 days, but only if you're a certain group or vaxxed. But wait, that doesn't apply to the unvaxxed. And then it's athletes, but only athletes that were vaxxed. Can we all just say that's segregation? Oh, that's the word I said out loud, segregation. This has gotten to a point where it's downright ridiculous. And the ineptness of our DPH, I cannot believe we're going to keep following this. Especially when it has already been proven by the CDC that cloth masks show very little, if no protection at all. However, now they're recommending N95s. And we all heard Lamont's little speech today with his wonderful little visit to the Bridgeport school. Do you realize that masks are considered a medical device approved only under this emergency authorization for COVID? And N95s cannot be worn by children. They are not approved for children. Do you realize that an N95 are contraindicated and against best medical practice for people that have lung disorders such as asthma or COPD or cystic fibrosis? But something I'm really proud of that came to my attention just before we came in the building tonight. Breaking in Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman. Breaking news, the New York State Supreme Court Justice Thomas Radmacher has ruled that the government's mask mandate for children is illegal. Thank you. The governor and the state education department have no, capital letters, authority to enforce a mandate without the approval of the state lawmakers. This is a major win for constitutional rights of parents. To answer you, Mr. Dijic, directly, you ask us what our legislators are going to do for us, and I'm sure that came from off my sign. You wanted to be proactive on that. Let me redirect that back to you. They're out there busting their hump, and more are coming forward. So with them out there doing that, what are you going to do to help them? You have a public platform right here in Southington. People are paving the way. Are we the ones that sit back and go, we just want to see a few more do it? Or does Southington stand up and do what's right and start paving the way? Right. We have precedents. I just read it to you, okay? So let's end this commie crazy crap happening in Hartford. Let's end these draconian mandates that are illegal. Let's end the executive order and the power he has by taking a stance and supporting our local legislatures. This is where your power is. So I ask you, what are you going to do to help support our local legislators?
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak tonight?
Hello, Tyler Young from Berkeley Avenue, and I'm also here tonight to speak out about our governor's 7th extension of power. When will it be enough for you to finally stand up, push back, and say no more? Is it after 2 ineffective boosters, 5, after 7? I want to know, because clearly it has not been enough to have had the loss of the sense of community we have in Southington, the loss of jobs, the loss of the ability to operate in commerce or provide for our families, the loss of childhood development, or the loss of religious freedom, or even the loss of bodily autonomy. So what is it going to take for you to finally say enough? I would like to know why Southington is participating in the distribution of tests that have been recalled by the FDA and whose emergency use authorization request was withdrawn by the CDC. Why are these faulty and dangerous tests containing carcinogens like sodium azide and ethylene oxide being handed out in our schools and in our community? The CDC has stated that these newer tests can differentiate between COVID and the flu. That statement alone should cause each and every one of you to experience an aha moment. This is where you're supposed to realize that the old tests couldn't differentiate between COVID and the flu. But then that would mean one would also have to admit that many of these COVID cases could have easily been just the plain old flu, which took a mysterious vacation for the first time in decades. But then you would also have to question all the mandates then put in place as well. We aren't supposed to have questions. And frankly, I think too many people are afraid of these answers because they have complied with this lie for so long, it's now difficult for them to switch lanes. But how about instead of blaming and discriminating against unvaccinated children for your vaccine not working, that you instead put your blame and anger where it belongs, on Big Pharma, Dr. Fauci, the CDC director, and the other elites like our own governor who have lied to you about their effectiveness and safety from the very beginning. If your own vaccine cannot protect you, what makes you think that my children being forced vaccinated will protect you? The vaccine does not protect you from getting nor transmitting COVID. That fact alone makes all of these mandates pointless and reckless. If teachers want to vaccinate and mask themselves, then let them. It is not a child's responsibility to take on further burden of providing a false sense of protection to an adult. These children have been through enough, and shame on you for allowing it to continue through your silence. If these protocols and mandates work, then why are there more cases than ever before in our state that is highly vaccinated and has been mandating masks in school all along? If the vaccines and masks works, we should have lower numbers. Why is Governor Lamont forcing people to test and vaccinate in order to visit family members in nursing homes, but will allow vaccinated workers who are COVID positive to report to work with minor symptoms? Why is he calling for nursing homes to take COVID positive patients from hospitals, knowing full well what happened to those patients last year when he did this? How is that protecting the vulnerable? If both vaccinated and unvaccinated can get and spread COVID, how come only the unvaccinated are being fired from their jobs and cast out of society? Governor Lamont says he needs to extend a 7th time in order to be able to quickly react should an emergency arise. That statement draws attention to the fact that we are not currently in a state of emergency, and that if and when emergency does arise, he completely has the ability to resume emergency powers at that time. These mandates and abuse of power are not about safety and science. This is about control and about greed. You are fooling yourself if you think Ned Lamont cares about anything more than lining his pockets with no-bid contracts and gaining control over us and our children. And this madness needs to end.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to me today. My name is Alexandra Gijisa Anderson, and I live in Plantsville. Congratulations to you all for your re-election, for many of you, and election, Jack. My message is simple today. Please help my family and the people in the audience and all those people who are behind our backs who are not here tonight. We want to stop gubernatorial abuse of power, which is happening for the 7th time. The pandemic was over when vaccinations became available to everyone who wanted them. Now, over a year later in Connecticut, this is a pandemic of bureaucracy for adults. And it is also a pandemic of a psychological child abuse. I fully believe that under his rules, our schools are directing our children to view themselves as vectors of disease, declaring any parent who objects this is declared a conspiracy theorist. This is not right. This has to end. Under his rule, we have also neglected our seniors. Under gubernatorial rule, we have also shut down small businesses. I hope you all remember those days where Walmarts and Targets were open, but mom and pop stores, they had to shut down. We have had enough of this. There's so many legislators that represent Southington. I've spoken even to a Democratic legislator that represents Southington, and she's already considering putting in opposition to Governor Lamont's executive authority. This is something that we have to do together. I know many people here maybe not necessarily agree with me politically on everything, but I am honestly asking you, please write a letter, put together a resolution of some kind, connect with the press. You are elected officials. Your voice carries power. You have to represent us. Please help us get this done. Let's do this together. Thank you.
Colleen Dubkowski. I live in Plantsville. I know I can't say names, but I know someone had a birthday yesterday, so happy birthday. I don't know if any of you had a moment to watch the Senator Ron Johnson. He did a panel on second opinions up in Congress. Yeah. I suggest that you do watch that. Several doctors did talk about how the masks are useless. So I think I know in the beginning of the pandemic, we were all afraid and we all wanted to keep our family and kids safe, and we understand that. But now a lot has come to light. And I think as adults, all of us, including you on the panel, we really need to be asking ourselves, why are we doing this? Because our children are going to suffer. They're suffering now. And as adults, we have to protect them in any way that's possible. We all know that in history, there has been laws passed that are not just. They're immoral. I mean, we have looked back to our history, segregation, slavery. There comes a time that you have to rise up against unjust laws, and we have to protect our kids. He is coming at our children. And do you imagine what that feels like for any parent, knowing that your child is a target? That has to pull your heartstrings. And I think as us, we're asking you to really consider that. And we put you in this position because we trusted you. And I'm hoping that you're not going to break that trust, even if it's a press release, even if it's a letter. We're just asking for someone to stand with us. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm here to speak about the same topic that the others have been speaking about, Governor Lamont's emergency powers extension. Oh, I'm sorry, Michael Krasansky, 27 Hitching Post Drive. So first, thank you for your service, for serving the town and putting in hours to better our community. Second, I agree with all the other speakers. Thank you, everyone who spoke up tonight. Good job. I agree with all their sentiment 100%. We're 2 years into the pandemic and flattening the curve. Okay. Lamont's emergency powers, I think, are almost the same amount of time, about 2 years, maybe a little less, I'm not sure, but very long. So the question is, when does it end? The pandemic is basically over. Yes, people are still getting sick with COVID, but the pandemic is done. Vaccination's been widely available for a long time. If people are afraid of COVID, they've had ample opportunity to get vaccinated, and probably a lot of people should. Okay. The emergency is over. Right now, it's not about emergency or health, it's about control. Okay, so that's what's going on. Southington is a conservative Republican majority town, as evidenced by the last election. Okay, I know a lot of Republicans in town. I belong to the RTC. I speak to many people, and everyone I speak to as a Republican is on the same page with me and the people who spoke tonight. I'm not saying every Republican town is, but everyone I speak with. Okay, so something's going on. I think we're on the same wavelength. We need to send a message to Governor Lamont. We need to do a proclamation. There have been previous proclamations against tolls. I was heavily involved in the anti-toll movement, as were people sitting right in front of me who did a proclamation. Okay. Also, there was a proclamation done, I'm pretty sure, against juvenile crime and changing, laws there. And I remember there was discussion, this is a state matter, it's not a town matter, but the Republicans here agreed, yeah, it's a state matter, but we need to put forward our thoughts on this and show where we stand. We need to send a message. Okay. So this isn't unprecedented. We've done proclamations before, we meaning the town council. So we need a proclamation to end the Lamont's emergency powers. I know it carries no official weight. I understand that. We're I'm not an expert about laws and things, but you make policy regarding the town and the state does their thing. But it can send a message, okay? I can get out and, wave my hands on the street outside and hold up a sign and I'll show a message, right? And I may get some attention, I might be able to change stuff, okay? Even though I'm not an elected official. So you can make change. If you make the proclamation, it'll get attention. Hopefully other towns will follow. Someone's got to be the first. I'm hoping you'll be at the forefront. I'm hoping you'll take a stand for Southington citizens. Because it's the right thing to do, in my opinion, and I think the opinion of a lot of other people here, and I think in the opinion of a lot of at least the Republican town councilors. I'm not sure about the Democrats. In any event, I think the majority of people in town feel it's time that this emergency powers of the governor ends, and I'm hoping you'll take a stand for us, being our elected officials, being people that we voted for. So thank you for your time.
Hi, good evening. I'm Valerie Ragucci at 102 West Street in Plantsville. I'm just going to speak from a personal perspective. Today a picture came up that I hadn't seen in a long time. And it made me sad because when I was a younger mom, when my kids were little, we used to do a lot of play dates. And we used to go to indoor play groups and playgrounds. And I used to worry about germs in these type of places because the kids were always coughing and they had snotty, runny noses. But I realized my kids needed to interact and play. And I couldn't shield them from this. So I let them go. And we washed our hands with soap and water afterwards. And I prayed that they wouldn't get sick. And of course they did because it's inevitable. And I think back to the fevers and the vomiting, the diarrhea, the exposure to these viruses in the past. And I'll say those viruses were pretty bad, but we let our bodies do their job in fighting it and we survived. It makes me sad to see this because yes, I miss these days, but more importantly, people overseeing the well-being of our children in school are no longer allowing our kids to build up immunity to viruses the way we were always taught to do and the way we always did. We all know this science works, and this way is the best way to keep kids healthy, not hiding and sheltering them from germs. By covering their faces with dirty bacteria-laden masks, hand sanitizer, and these COVID vaccines that still don't work after the third time. These methods weaken the natural immune system created for that purpose, and when these kids are eventually exposed to viruses, it won't work as effectively in protecting them, and they're going to be sick much worse. This is the real science we need to follow. Creating fear of viruses in our children is having such a negative impact on their mental health too. And when are we going to stop this insanity and stop this abuse and start protecting our children the way we should? The longer this continues, the longer you are contributing to the scarring of these children. A normal childhood and school experience that these kids are being robbed of. I'm sure you can think back to when you were in high school and the things you did. These kids don't have that at all. Each of you promised when you took your elected positions that you would do what's best for our town, and this includes the well-being of our children. You must give pushback to Hartford and Governor Lamont in stopping these mandates and support our local and state legislators that are like-minded in this matter. We are here to support you in regaining local control back to the town of Southington where it belongs. Thank you.
How you doing, folks? Greg Curran, 48 Working Street, Plantsville. I apologize for my attire. I found out about the meeting kind of last minute. I didn't mean to get so dressy. Can you hear me? All right. So the reason why I'm here is actually to support the folks that are here speaking out against mask mandates. I do agree 100% with them. It's your child, your choice, is my opinion. You know, but I don't have facts or anything else to come and report to you folks about that, but I am here to support them. And I think there are a lot of people that I know that don't just come to these meetings and tell you this. The other reason why I came up to speak tonight, and I've spoken to several people here in this room about it in the past, is a quality of life issue for people that live in the Working Street area. Kennedy Middle School used to have an air conditioning unit on top of the building. And after the renovations, it was put on the ground. I work midnights for a municipality. I come home, I try to sleep during the day, and you constantly hear the air conditioning unit running. It was running in December. It was running a few weeks ago in January. Why AC needs to run in the building's that warm that it needs to run this time of year. It's really a quality of life. I don't have central air in my house. I have to open my windows. I was told that people admitted that the town is a violation of their own ordinance, that it's supposed to have a cover over it, but that cover would cost a couple $100,000. Tonight I heard about $21,000 that we're spending on a net to keep leaves out of our wastewater treatment. I know feces breaks down, I would think a leaf would. But if I could, just so people here know what I hear from my own yard, and Southington PD was sent out to my house with a sound meter. And the response I got was that it's normal conversational speech volume that's going on, and that's acceptable. There's a lot of routes we could go. I could rally all the neighbors and come here and be obnoxious and be a squeaky wheel. That's not what I want to do. I want to work with people and get it solved. I believe if you look into East Haven, they had a similar issue, and they were forced to put it over after litigation. But this is what I listen to when I come home at 7 o'clock in the morning from working all night. Conversational speech, and that's acceptable. If one of you like buy my house and come live there and listen to that, I'm willing to sell, fair market value. But I don't think that's a good quality of life for me. I have an 80-year-old mother that I want to have come over for a cookout in my backyard, and she can't hear me because of that. At night, I try to watch TV. I have to turn it up if I have my back door open so that I can hear what's on the TV. I brought it up to the Board of Ed at a recent meeting. They weren't happy with it. They asked me to send them the tapes I took. I'd also like to include you folks on it too. I don't know. I know it's budget time. I don't know whose budget it comes out of, but I figure if we have $21,000 for a net, maybe we could spend money to put a cover over it. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Cynthia Herron, 408 Main Street. I don't have anything written to present today, but my thought is all of you have been put into office so that you could represent all of Southington's residents. There are many voices here tonight which are opposing Governor Lamont's desire to have another, what's it called? Executive thing. As I think that the majority of the people don't want it. And as our representatives, I'm simply asking you that you represent the people and do your job that we've all voted you in for. Thank you very much for your service. I appreciate it.
Good evening. I'm Kristen Ritchie from Chesterwood Terrace. Tonight I'm here to respectfully ask that the Town Council work with the Board of Education to communicate to the Governor's Office, DPH, and the State Department of Ed. Do you all have children or grandchildren? Our children are struggling, going on 2 years of not seeing friends and teachers' faces, not learning speech properly, not mastering phonics or reading at the expected ages, eating lunch at desks 6 feet apart in a cafeteria, not eating with friends, running in gyms with masks on, age 5. Think especially about autistic children and children with Down syndrome. Have you thought about them? Today, Governor Lamont had a press conference in a school, without a mask. He's gaining more and more confidence with every extension of his powers. Why would he bother following his own mandates and wear a mask in schools when he knows he'll just extend his executive powers again, and we all will just do nothing about it? I ask you to ask the Southington school principals to share with each of you their weekly update emails. In those emails are pictures of our children with cloth masks over their faces. It is horrific. Week after week, we're all pretending that it's normal and these kids are okay, and they're not okay. I know this is not a Board of Ed meeting. I know this is a town council, but I'm asking you as a town council to partner with our Board of Ed and send a message to Hartford. I understand you don't have the authority per se, but just send the message. We are hearing from our constituents. We are concerned for the children of our town. Just voice that message. We want the powers back. A Board of Ed sets policy, right? So why is Governor Lamont setting policy? That should not be how it is. Please do this for our children. Ask for the weekly emails from the elementary schools and look at these children. Every Friday, look at them and let me know how you feel. Thank you so much.
I didn't prepare anything. My name is Luke Jura. I live at Queen Street in Southington. I personally, I've never actually worn a mask. I've never even bought one. Now I was I'm gonna come at this from a little bit of a historical context. I was born in communist Poland. My father was a member of the Solidarity movement. We came to America. We now live in the Constitution state. Our Constitution inspired the federal Constitution, in which we are guaranteed a representative form of government. Right now, the last 2 years, we have not had a representative form of government. As our elected representatives, even if it's only a proclamation, it is important to stand with Senator Rob Sampson and Representative Gail Masters-Brzezinski, who have led the charge in fighting this unconstitutional mandate. And I think history is going to judge people who took the easy way out and stayed quiet. They're going to be judged harshly because the truth is coming out, and this is an unconstitutional series. Excuse me. This is an unconstitutional mandate, and there's no emergency. The emergencies don't last 2 years. It's time to end it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Thank you all for your comments, and I'm going to close public communication right now. Thank you very much. And the other thing is I want to thank you for being so respectful tonight. That was very important to me. Thank you. We're going to be moving on old business, action on public hearing, modification to the vets. Paul, I'm sorry, Michael, were you going to make that?
Sure, I'll make that
Yeah.
motion to approve for the Veterans Tax Ordinance.
Can I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Yeah, Val DiPaolo just seconded it. Councilwoman DiPaolo. Any other discussion about the, I think we're going to just take a minute. I'm going to suspend right now. We're going to suspend. If you're leaving, would you please leave quietly so we can continue our work? Thank you so much. We appreciate it very, very much. We have a motion and a second concerning the modification of the Veterans Tax Ordinance. Is there any further discussion on it? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Dietrich,
Happily, yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Absolutely.
Del Santo,
Proudly, yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Item B, action on the report of the Board of Finance.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the Board of Finance meeting from January 12th, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Do I have a second from Chris? Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on the report of the Board of Finance report? Hearing none, let's call the roll, please.
Dietrich,
Yes.
Lombardi,
Yes.
Morelli,
Yes.
Palmieri,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Chaplinsky,
Yes.
Del Santo,
Yes.
DiPaolo,
Yes.
Triano.
Yes. Item C, action on the WPC recommendation for phosphorus building netting. Jim? Okay, very good. May I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Val. Is there any further questions or discussion on the phosphorus building netting? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. Our item 9, new business, tax refunds.
I make a motion to approve the tax refunds that were presented in our packets.
Second.
And I have a second from Bill. All those in favor signify by saying, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We're going to move on. We have 2 appointments. The first appointment is of the Parks and Rec Department for a 4-year term ending in 2023, fulfilling Mr. Galati. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, thank you very much. Do I have a nomination?
I'll make a motion to nominate Katie Wade of 39 Madeline Lane for this open spot.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any discussion?
I just want to thank Mr. Galati for his service. I know
Yes.
he's no longer able to serve because I believe he's moving. So I just want to thank Mr. Galati for his service, and I know Katie will do a great job too.
I'm sure she will. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? We congratulate Katie Wade. Item number 2 is a member for the Commission for Persons with Disabilities, and it's to fill Lauren Dietzig's position. She had to resign. She's so busy. And
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion for Mary Barbagallo, who has kindly been staying here this entire meeting. So thank you for staying.
She is. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Oh.
Thank you very much. If you don't know, Mary's a hospice volunteer. She works very hard with community services and has a love for all people who need her. So I'm sure that she's going to do a great job. Is there any other discussion on Mary? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Congratulations, Mrs. Barbagallo. Thank you.
Madam Chair, before we move off of
Yeah.
appointments, can I just ask maybe the town attorney to follow up on one other?
Yes, sure.
one? The library building committee, I don't know, but I'm wondering if the town attorney can check to see if the library director needs to be a voting member of that committee or versus an ex officio member, just because of the state grant.
Yeah.
So if we could do that, if you can follow up on that. And then also if we can take a look at the makeup of that committee and then take a look at the minority representation, which I know really is the majority representation, just to see if that is that commission is in compliance with the charter.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Paul, you wanted to also...
Yeah, Madam Chair, just since we did get some feedback from a resident regarding the noise at Kennedy Middle School, I think it would be worth having a report at our next meeting as to what our findings are, either from the Board of Ed. I know that we have the the chairwoman and we have our superintendent here, but also maybe the town manager can liaison and take a look into the complaint.
Permission, I'll have myself and Nat and Mr. Romano will look into it.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
This issue has been going on for a long time. I went out to Kennedy on this exact thing from the officer that came, Greg, I forgot his last name.
Kern.
Yeah.
Kern.
Yeah, and it's an awful thing that they're dealing with. So I would appreciate it very much also. I would, I brought it up a couple of times and not too much happened. So I would like to see, because that whole street, it just is so noisy. So.
Madam Chair, as part of that, the gentleman Mr. Kern did also reference East Haven as having a successful mitigation to that. So I would ask that we at least look into that and find out what they did as a best practice.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Last call. Hearing nothing else, I'm waiting for.
Make a motion to adjourn, Madam Chair.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye.
Good meeting, everybody. Thank you.
We have executive session.
No executive. Mary, could I see you?
It was still a